You're listening to the Anything Goes Project. Interesting topics, interesting things, real stories by real people. Your host is Mike. The Anything Goes Project is a production of M&C Designs. Be advised, this show may not be suitable for all ages. Many of the topics are for mature audiences only. The explicit tag is there for a reason. If you would like to contact the show, email us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com or leave us a message at 361-433-5739. And now, on with the show.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Mike, Anything Goes Project. Tonight, we did a different show again. It was kind of a different setup. Tonight, I was on Big Rich's show once again, but this time we've got the actual video footage from that show, so we pulled it into our system that you guys are going to get to see right here. So, with that, guys, enjoy the show. And I'm out of here. Bye.
And welcome to the Big Rich Show, guys. It looks like it's becoming almost a weekly, if not daily staple. I got joining me again, my good buddy from the Anything Goes Project, Mike Simons. What's up, bud?
Not much. I'm just glad we can do this again. And I mean, Insider Tracked. This is what, the fourth time we've tried to record this episode?
Yeah, I think so, man. We have had some issues trying to get this one knocked out of the park, but hopefully this will be the one, guys. And tonight we're going to be touching on a little bit of disclosure in the UFO community. We're going to touch softly on some other alien topics and anything that comes up in that realm. So if you guys don't have your tinfoil hats, which
Shit,
man,
I forgot
I
mine.
know.
I was going to wear one today.
So was I, but I think somebody wrapped some hamburger from last night in the one I created. So
I think somebody covered up some cookies or something with mine.
anyways, all right, man. Well, I get excited, man. This is one of my specialties, aliens and just delving in and researching on this. But I kind of wanted to specifically open up with disclosure tonight. I know that one of the big deals of the last couple of years with the disclosure is when Stephen Greer actually opened in 2016. He opened up all his files from 2001. And the reason he had to wait 15 years, I guess, was because this was all done through the government and legally. So he was not allowed to share a lot of this until a certain time was met. So,
well, as he was interviewing, he had a lot of people that were military, that were still active and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, at least kudos on him for at least cooperating with the agencies, because some people would be like, screw this, that's the government, they're going to try to suppress me. You're bringing people on that are still employed by the government, and you don't want to jeopardize their jobs.
Absolutely, brother. And I mean, and I'll tell you what, Stephen Greer, he's very intelligent, he's very articulate. He was an emergency room
trauma
doctor. Trauma surgeon. And like he said in a few of the documentaries that he's been in, this is something that he didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be the tip of the spear with aliens, UFOs, and disclosure. It was kind of just dropped in his lap. And he was so curious, he's just been trying to find answers, I guess, for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go ahead and throw some stuff out there if you'd like.
We know that when Stephen Greer started out, he was a traumatologist. He retired from that, but he's also the founder of the Center for Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence and Disclosure Project. And the Disclosure Project is what you had sent me the video link, and we're like, hey, check out the video on the Disclosure Project. And watched it. It was interesting. As most of your listeners know from hearing me on past shows, I'm not necessarily the conspiracy guy that wants to go out and like everything. I don't see a conspiracy in every corner. I know people like that. You're not one of those, Rich. But because I like to be able to break it down and like, what's the evidence behind this? And he brought some compelling evidence because it wasn't like he was interviewing that asshat from the Flat Earth Society or something. He was like, I'm an expert. And I'm like, well, your math doesn't even work. Like, you're not an expert. But in this particular case, Stephen Greer actually had people that were in the military at the time. They were in front of a podium, sworn testimony. And so that makes it interesting. But we all know eyewitness testimony is subjective because our minds do change things. And if you don't mind, I would actually like to kind of give an example of that.
Sure.
There was an experiment done to prove the validity of eyewitness testimony because our minds make us see what it perceives what is going on in the situation, right? And so, yeah, some of these guys may see something in the sky, but what else was going on during that time? So this particular experiment was done in a subway station where one person was considered the person that was going to be affected by this fake scenario. So they went down into the subway and were just standing there, and all of a sudden they just yelled out, "Oh my God, somebody just stole my radio." And these other people came in. They called them their Confederates because they were part of it, but dressed as police officers and stuff, and started interviewing people. People were describing the person that actually stole the radio. They were describing the radio. It was anywhere from a boom box to smaller little boom box, and it was sitting on the floor beside him. A guy in a red hoodie stole it. No, a guy in a green hoodie stole it, and this and this and this. And then after it was all said and done, everything was revealed. There was never a boom box, and there was never somebody there to steal it. He simply stated it, and people's minds created the scenario.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's wild, man. You know, and we don't think about that often too. I mean, when we hear something, like when you hear something, you'll put an image in your head and you'll start to try and visualize it as you would see it. So that only makes sense. I mean, yeah, I get that. But, you know, like
however, he did bring in some compelling people in their evidence, but not just him. There was also some really big names that are high up in the government. They were saying on this video, yeah, we have a space program. We're seeing things out there. We don't know what they are. We need to research this. One of them being Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
I mean, Mikhail Gorbachev, he said the phenomena of UFOs exist, and it needs to be taken seriously. And, you know, that's during the Reagan time too. And what did Reagan, you know, was Star Wars. And to take it even a little further back before Reagan, 67, I think I had it wrote down somewhere. I believe it was 1967 when they signed and they did this in London. It was America, Russia, Germany, and England and a few other countries signed the space treaty, to where no one could actually go into space and claim anything outside of our atmosphere. So, you know, when we have that, and then we had NATO, the Antarctica Treaty, and NASA all formed as well within a year of each other, it just makes you start, so yeah, I don't know. And look at all the stuff they're finding now too. We were just talking about this earlier, the different species they're finding as the ice is melting down in the Antarctic.
Well, going back to your the 1967 space treaty, I can kind of see a reason for that. Why these major countries were going into it, because it was in April 12th, 1961, Yuri Gagarin was the first man into space, and his flight lasted 108 minutes as he circled the Earth for a little more than one orbit in the Soviet Union's Vostok spacecraft. So 1961, the first man was in space. John F. Kennedy came out shortly after that and was we are going to put a man on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we went to the moon. So I can see where this space treaty was a necessity, because we could have gone up there and planted our flag like we did.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracy theories. Planted our flag like we did and
Or
said
did,
the moon now belongs to the United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And who would be there to dispute it?
Sure, sure.
So what, are we going to start having a civil war on the moon?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can understand the space treaty for that. It's actually a really good idea, because anything outside of our atmosphere, I think, is open game. Specifically now with, I think, what is it? The private sector getting involved into the space races. You've got the Falcon X program and Elon Musk, and then you've got Virgin Atlantic. That's Richard Branson, and you got all these other ones that are. I think the private sector is what's going to push us into space for the exploration. And you don't want Russia saying, well, we saw that asteroid that y'all are heading to first in our telescope, so it's ours.
Right, right.
But yeah, that asteroid is rich in palladium. When we can mine that in space, bring it back to Earth, and make batteries that actually last 32 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A AAA battery that you only have to recharge every 32 years or something like that. So, I mean,
Right.
the resources that are out there in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can claim it.
Yeah. Well, and then here's where those conspiracies start coming in right there. There's whistleblowers that are claiming that we're already set up on the moon and Mars as well, and we've got mining facilities going on.
Yeah.
Now how true is it? I mean, we don't know. This is people talking.
There again, it's somebody saying this.
Right.
Where I want to see, that's why I like to, when somebody tells me, oh, well, this is going on, what evidence do you have to back this up?
Right. Right.
Because personally, your word itself is meaningless unless there is something to corroborate it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, we've had tons of whistleblowers that are verified. Yes, they worked at, let's say, for example, Area 51, or they worked in Dulce, New Mexico, or they were in the Cheyenne complex, and it's verified. Yes, they are a scientist. Excuse me, they are former government employees, and yes, they did work at that facility. But how much of what they are saying is true?
Right.
Are they just looking to get that little 15 seconds of fame, by saying, oh, hey, I worked on alien tech, da 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 da, or is it true? And then the government's just keeping it disclosed, like they said, because they're afraid that the American public could not handle the truth.
Yeah. Or is it like what you and I discussed in a past episode, that our scientists and governments in the black sites have been working on technology,
Mm-hmm.
and for so many years, such as the 5G, which we know is, the technology is over 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they've advanced it so far that when these people do come in and work for them, because it's such a new technology, they've never seen it before, it's alien.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Think about it. It's how they've said throughout the years that when a more advanced civilization will meet a lesser advancement, their technology will seem as magic to us.
Sure.
So, I mean, we've got guys that have never seen this tech before being brought in to work on it, whereas these engineers have already been doing this for the past 20 years. So now it's alien to them.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Something to think about.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. But if we're going to look, I mean, we've got to look at it. All right. We've got to take a step back and let's think of the different things that have happened through the years to get us to where we're at now, because it's a popular belief. If you've asked, I mean, I was looking at the percentages, at least 60% of the U.S. population believes that there are alien life forms.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big chunk, man.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, the universe is vast.
Right.
To me, it's almost, I can see the possibilities because, I mean, with the Kepler telescope that we've just sent out, we're finding exoplanets that are considered Class M planets
Hmm.
left and right, just within our galaxy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
What was that? That one thing that we sent out into space. I forget the name. I'm bad with
Voyager,
names. And
Voy-
it just left our solar system.
Voyager.
Voyager. Yes.
Yeah, Voyager
Uh,
on its final approach, leaving our solar system, it was passing Pluto, and they had it do a turnaround. And this was because I actually Carolyn Porco, she's worked with that program since the pale blue dot image.
mhm.
And so they actually, on its farewell, they had it rotate around and get a picture of Pluto and Earth as the pale blue dot as it's leaving our solar system.
Wow.
And
Okay.
dude, super awesome. You can barely see it's a little speck.
Oh, I'm sure. Solar systems. Yeah. I'm sure. I cannot even believe that we were able to actually even see it. It probably looks like a small star, like a star looks to us sitting here on Earth. But I like to look over things. Do you remember? Here's one thing: 1942. Uh, we just had the Pearl Harbor had happened, so the whole West Coast is on defense. I mean, from LA to Seattle, we've got beaches, the beach towns layered with artillery ready to go. And we had the battle of what they called the Battle of Los Angeles in 1942.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever seen the pictures from that or any of the
I'm
documents?
actually looking it up right now.
Okay. What I found very interesting about that is they started firing into the sky. And one of these images, you can see artillery shells hitting, and they look like they're almost bouncing off some type of craft.
Yeah.
And there was eyewitness testimony from civilian and military alike saying, yes, there were UFOs. They were coming in off the coast, and we just started firing on them. And they fired back a little bit, but I guess not too much. But this is one that a lot of people, if you're not in the UFO community, they wouldn't even know about that because this is pre-Roswell.
Yeah, and okay, I'm looking at this right now. I'm looking at the image, and from what I can see right here, there's spotlights
Mm-hmm.
that are, and some people would probably look at some of these and say, "Oh, well, that's the actual laser beams, or that's the what." But you can tell that these are actually spotlights that are hitting.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can
yeah.
see it right there.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen it before.
and
There's spotlights hitting stuff. Well, the military claimed that it was an air balloon
yeah.
or several.
Well,
Well,
have you ever seen a tracer round fired?
not in person, but I have
I
on
have.
TV.
I have seen a tracer round fired. They are bright.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as what this is, it very well could have been a spacecraft. It very well could have been a balloon or a plane. But when those tracer rounds, it's like every fifth round that comes out of that gun is a tracer round, and it's that magnesium flare. Those things burn bright. Magnesium burns when it ignites, burns at over 5,000 degrees.
Sure.
So that's going to be bright as hell.
Yeah.
And I had a whole belt of tracer rounds that we fired one time, and it was like in pitch black. You fire it lights up the whole area like it's daylight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was their design. They were just so you could see the direction. They were designed for pilots that were shooting at a moving target, so that they could see the trajectory of where their bullets were going.
Right. So yeah, like we said here, we're just theory crafting and we're shooting it back.
I'll have
forth.
a picture of that up in my version.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I'll have some stuff going as well, as I always do here on the TV. So with that one, that happened, and then it kind of brings us up to Roswell, 1947, where it was claimed that 3 different UFOs came down with 3 separate bodies or alien entities in each one. And there's so many variations of this story that was told, from the clippings that you'll see to the side of me on the TV, where the newspapers are actually saying, and even the military, UFO craft, shot down or crashed, bodies recovered, and then within 24 hours it's changed to, oh, it was balloons and there were no bodies, and and there's actually documented, releases of people saying, yes, this is what we saw, da 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 da. But
Here's
there
what's really
again,
fun is when you know how to get into Google Scholar. I actually pulled up directly from the Smithsonian the 1947 news article.
hey,
So I'm going to put that. It's really interesting because it says right here, the RAAF captures flying saucer on a ranch in Roswell region. And this is an actual microfiche copy of that newspaper.
yeah.
And then what was it? The next day, within 24 hours, it was a weather balloon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then even the sheriff and everything, they had came out and the sheriff had spoke, and they went out to the ranch, and but it was just, it's so, they make you want to go, are they lying? Or, I mean, what's going on here? Because even the rancher that owned that property, now all these years later, his son has even come out and said, yes, we retrieved pieces and particles from this on our land over the years, and this material is nothing of this earth, basically. So and you got those type of things, and then you have,
Wasn't
Eric.
it supposedly that material that they retrieved something that, what's his name? Bob Lazar was supposedly looking at and working on, that element 147.
I don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I know that supposedly the element that Bob Lazar said they were working on cannot be recreated or remade here on Earth,
And it
and
has
that
anti-gravitational properties.
right, and that is the reason that we're not able to actually continue forward with us creating the crafts, because we're missing not only that element. There's one more that I know. Phil Schneider, God bless his soul, that dude was a patriot. I know people think he was crazy, but I totally believe a lot of stuff that he did say. um, People call me crazy for believing it, but this guy had come out with a lot of good information, and he outed several complexes that only say, and it wasn't like Phil Schneider was some kind of kook. This guy was an engineer. He helped create and design these underground bunkers and bases. So it's not like, once again, it's not like it's just some drunk off the street saying, I used to work and over here and I saw 5 aliens and one pulled a gun. I mean, this guy he opens and shows where he got hit with something, and then looks like this portion of his hand was just laser melted off. Now, could have those happened just from the job being an engineer, and one day he got in the way and part of his hand got cut? Sure. But,
Yeah.
you know,
I would love to talk about some of the stuff that I've been told about from, but yeah, I don't want people knocking on my door today. I can tell you offline.
right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I like that. And then when Phil Schneider supposedly had 13 attempts on his life, and then the 14th one was successful, supposedly, and they call it a suicide. Now, if you looked at this guy and the shape that he was in at that point, he was worn down, beat down. He had lost his family, pretty much lost everything he had. And they find him where he strangled himself with his catheter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's going to be pretty hard to do with one hand, because he really didn't have use of one hand, missing all those fingers. And to be able to get something that tight around your neck, your own catheter, it just kind of makes you go, because they said, oh, well, yeah, he committed suicide. He hung himself in bed with a catheter.
Yeah.
It makes you go, well, how did he get it around his head? And why would he do that? Why would he kill himself after he was just starting to pick up steam on the circuit, and get information out? But he did have a kind of I don't know, man. It's because he did have some quacky guys that did associate with him. And I know you know some of those guys' names because we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
But it just, once again, it's things that make you go, man, that's kind of weird, you know? And it seems like everybody that comes out with any type of information
ends
dead.
up suicided.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? People want to say that I'm crazy for thinking this, but what was that? Anthony Bourdain. I know this isn't UFOs, folks. This guy had everything in the world to live for, okay? The man he went from cooking in kitchens to being a TV show host, and he was mad at Hollywood, and he was complaining while he was over in Europe that when I get back, I'm going to come out about all this child trafficking and stuff that's going on, not only in Europe, but right there in our backyard in America, because now I've got some inside info and I'm going to share it because it pisses me off.
I've never heard any of that.
Yeah. Well, next thing you know, he's hanging from a closet because, you know, he's affixicate, you know, doing that whole sexual deal where you
No. That wasn't it. I've actually got a little bit of insight on this because
really, well, that's what they claimed it was.
The person that actually knew him personally did a whole podcast about this and was talking to him. Anthony Bourdain suffered dramatically from depression, anxiety, and was on bipolar medications.
Sure.
And he started doing like jujitsu and stuff like that to try to control himself a little better. And he was doing great on it. He working out, doing all this stuff. Well, he started dealing with somebody who was like, oh, well, you need to come off those medications. And so he did. He quit taking the medications. And well, and having personally experienced dealing with individuals that have to take these medications, when you come off of them, your body goes into a different reactionary type phase and you start spiraling out of control. And it wasn't asphyxiation. He hung himself. It was a suicide from the depression and anxiety and stuff. He no longer had those meds in him, and it was a chemical imbalance that somebody told him he can get off his meds. Which is why this is, I will say this PSA right now to anybody that is listening. If you know somebody that is going through a mental health issue and that such as anxiety, PTSD, depression, bipolar, or whatever, and if you don't have a freaking medical degree and you're not their psychologist, shut your damn mouth and don't tell them to get off their meds. That's my soapbox for the day.
Unless it's making you sick or doing more harm than good, get off your meds.
Well, even still, yeah, it's like consult your doctor, not Tabby down at the essential oil store.
Hey, man, I love essential oils, man.
Well, they smell great,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not going to have them telling me, oh, sniff this oil. It's going to do the exact same thing as.
I'm not going to listen to them either, but I will research it. And I've done a lot of research on essential oils too, and some of them I use in my daily life, and some of them I don't. And man, I tell you what, I haven't taken an antibiotic in years. And when I do get sick, I'll just use some different concoctions with some herbs. And I know it sounds crazy in teas, but I always
not necessarily, because herbs, what do you think they used to make a lot of these medicines back in the day?
Well, back in the day, now there's so much synthetic going on.
You had a headache, somebody would give you a piece of willow bark to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Willow bark is what they used to make aspirin.
Right. Okay, I did not know that. I do know that they said that you chew hot peppers like cayenne pepper and things like that, and that would actually help to bring down blood pressure.
Yeah, because of the chemical properties of the pepper that are actually in it. You've got, well, a lot of people don't know this. If you're vitamin C deficient, eat a jalapeno.
Mm-hmm.
Jalapenos have 12 times more vitamin C in them than you would have to eat 12 oranges to get what you can get out of one jalapeno.
I did not know that either. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will be eating more jalapenos.
Absolutely.
No wonder you're always eating them every weekend with stuffed shrimp.
But
all right, let's
talk about conspiracy. Since we are talking about conspiracy, this isn't quite alien, but since we're on this subject, you know, back in the medieval times, back before they started doing the witch burnings and stuff, the people that they considered the witches were the ones who knew what the properties of these plants did.
Oh, absolutely. Well, no, I have talked about this in a show with Vanessa, and I've also had Donna Gorton on my show, who is into that side of life. That's what she practices.
Yeah, I had
Crystals.
Megan Black on my show.
And I mean, we talked about that, where these were the shamans, and that's how they got the name witch doctor, because they were the ones that actually, the knowledge was passed on to them how to make these salves and these different elixirs that would help to heal and cleanse and fight these things. But for some reason, they got this bad rap, and I mean, that was a slaughter, dude.
Yeah, well, it was simply that a woman knew science and knew more than a man, so she's a witch. Burn her.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of innocent women died.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you've ever researched the history of the Salem witch trials, that was that was just it was laughable for us to look at it now, but back then it was like, really, guys, come on, can we put on our logic brains?
Yeah, it was horrific. Yeah, I mean, and people don't even, I know it's not aliens like he said, but take your time and look back on that, because a lot of people lost their lives just over practicing medicine to try and help their town or their area, and people would go to them looking to be healed. So yeah,
their book of shadows were basically lists of ingredients, plants and herbs, what properties that had. They knew what plant, if you took it, made you hallucinate. They knew that plant, okay, yeah, it's going to make you hallucinate, but it's also going to bring your fever down.
Right.
Okay, willow bark, yes. Oh, you have a migraine or a headache. Well, here you go. You can chew on this willow bark, and it'll ease the pain of that. Well, we now know that, hey, if aspirin is in willow bark, that's how we get aspirin. And just like these different nightshades and things like that. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, they were these women that everybody was calling a witch. This stuff was passed down from mother to daughter, how to do it. And it was like, oh, but if we can't pray over it, then it's bad. It's evil. And so, I mean, that's pretty much what happened with these ladies and stuff, because I've had numerous conversations about this, and I would love to get a hold of some of these old books of Book of Shadows and look at some of these, how they, because I've seen some like photocopies of some, and it's like detailed drawings of a plant. Notes like, yes, you don't use the leaves, but the stems can be boiled and this, and it'll do this. And it's like, oh, wow. Well, that's basically, they were practicing medicine back then.
Yeah, they were. I mean, and my grandmother and my mother too, they always kept a small, what I call a window garden, a small window herb garden. And they would use these daily and weekly for everything, whether it be cooking or medicinal. And we've got some of the heirloom seeds of these herbs, and if you research it yourself, folks, you'll see that a lot of the herbs that we can take and use will help ailments, anything from blood pressure to, like you said, headaches, nausea, upset stomachs.
Yeah, ginger root. When people were sailing on ships, we didn't have Dramamine back then. Chew on a piece of ginger root.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I had was some asshole that came out and said, she turned me into a newt, but I got better.
Right. I was a toad for a day.
And anybody who did not get that reference, you cannot be my friend.
So let's get back to Stephen Greer just for a moment. Let's touch with that.
All right, we were chasing rabbits there.
I know, we're having fun. That's what it's about, though. And I know some people's, they'll expect the show to be all about one thing, but that's why we podcast and we do these, because, we enjoy discussing things.
And we are a plethora of information.
That's right. But you got to find your own truths. Always remember that.
Yes.
So when Stephen Greer had these people that we talked about on the panel, They brought in 20 highly decorated military, government, and corporation employees. Some of these corporations, from the Skunk Works and Boeing and things of that, when they came in and started talking, I mean, they expressed what not only they were upset, but they tried to describe what they saw and what they were doing. And the only reason they were coming out is because they wanted the public to know. And, you know, they had one guy, his name was Dr. Edgar Mitchell, right? The astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
He came out and he stated, there are aliens and craft, both working and crashed on the moon. There are also towers and obelisks there as well.
Okay.
So this is Edgar Mitchell. Everyone knows that name. It's a household name. And he is stated as saying that. Astronaut Gordon Cooper said, I believe these vehicles and their crews are from other planets and a little more advanced than we are here on Earth. Why would he say that if he didn't see something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this press conference that he did, was that in 2001?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was the press conference held at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. It featured 20 retired Air Force, Federal Aviation Administration, and intelligence officers. See, I'm actually looking this stuff up while we're going, too. So,
right. Fact checking.
Yeah, well, and it just shows the audience that, hey, yeah, we're saying something, but yeah, you can follow along and actually be checking it and actually pulling up these articles too at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And here's one that I always found very interesting. They weren't a part of the disclosure group there, but these are former presidents and a couple of, like, for giving you an example, former President Jimmy Carter. He came out, and this is a quote, I am convinced that UFOs exist. Why? Because I saw them. I saw one. Gerald Ford. I believe the American people are entitled to a more thorough explanation than what has been given to them by the Air Force. I think we owe it to the people to establish credibility regarding UFOs and to produce the greatest possible enlightenment of the subject. I mean, these are very influential people, presidents. Air Chief Marshal Lord Dowding. Of course the flying saucers are real, and they are interplanetary. I don't know, people. What do you think? And here, I'll leave you with this one.
Interesting. One of the things that he pointed out in that show was Carl Sagan earlier in his career.
Oh, yeah.
Was absolutely there is life out there. And then it was like, he said somebody, agency or something, approached him and told him you need to button up on this. And now it's like, nope, we're alone.
Yeah, Carl Sagan made a total flip switch. This was a guy who, yes, there is life out there, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody got to him, and all of a sudden he was like, look, man, we're nothing but little specks of dust. There's nothing out there. We are it. Yeah, if you think there's UFOs or aliens, you're stupid. Basically he just flipped the script. So that makes you think, man, okay.
Well, for somebody to come out, and I've heard so many people say there's no evidence for aliens. I don't know if we'd call it evidence or anything yet, but one of the things I like to harp on, because I've had to do some investigations for MUFON in the past. Mm-hmm. I've had eyewitness testimony. This is what they saw. And yet the evidence that we produce is never actually there. And the reason why is I've seen some really interesting photographs, but for some reason they're always fuzzy. They're always grainy. And sometimes when they're put through the scrutiny and the analytics, oh, well, you can tell that this was faked or whatever. But you know what? Society today, we carry around probably one of the most powerful cameras on the market in our pockets. And we said this in the other show. Learn how to whip this sucker out and hit record. Start documenting crap. because that is the only way some of this stuff is going to, otherwise it's just you saying, I saw an orb in the sky or a cigar shaped. Where's your evidence for it? Otherwise, everybody's just going to laugh at you. And I go through and I read on the National UFO Hotline where the reports, and I'm seeing specifically in my area, there are tons of reports coming in almost on a daily basis that we're seeing weird things in the sky. Okay, pull your camera out so we can analyze it. It might very well just be a plane that you're seeing. But we'll never know if you people don't start whipping your cameras out and getting this footage for us to look at. I was watching something the other night. It was right at dusk, and it just looked odd. And I'm like, that son of a bitch is booking it across the sky. So I pulled out my phone and did it the whole time. And I was like, I was confused. I couldn't tell what it was just from here. So, but having my phone out, I was able to actually video it and then come in here and blow up the video a little bit. It was Gulfstream.
Oh, wow.
A Gulfstream jet. Okay, we know those things. Get it. But to my naked eye looking at it, it looked out of the ordinary. It had that cigar shape to it and everything. And it was whipping across that sky.
But, too, with that said, now we have more recorded evidence than ever. There are people that have captured some really good footage and clear footage of cigar-shaped UFOs moving that are not CGI and that are not photoshopped in. And I'm going to tell you a guy who, he's in Mexico. His name is Jaime
Vasange.
Yes, I think it's something like that.
Something like that.
And he's actually worked with L.A. Marzulli, who is a big researcher with Nephilim and things like that, the alien hybrids, yada, yada.
I've heard Jaime's interview on Spaced Out Radio.
He actually put out a documentary as well showing some ridiculous footage of actual alien type beings interacting or being on the street. And this stuff is it's not Photoshop. And if any of you guys get a chance, just look him up on Amazon Prime or even Google it and watch that video with him. This footage will just have your jaw drop to the ground. There's a couple of them where I'm like, yeah. But for the most part, I'm like, holy shit. So if you ever get a chance, check that out. And maybe I'll throw some of that up here while we're talking as we continue to talk on the screen here and let you guys just take a gander at some of those. Because it'll definitely pique your interest if you're into that UFO thing. Before we move any further, I did want to mention this. I always found this is odd, and this is going back to how conspiracy thinking. But on August 3rd, 1962, okay, Dorothy Kilgan, she had talked with Marilyn Monroe on a taped conversation phone call because Marilyn Monroe's phone was tapped at the time. Why?
The NSA, because of her dealings with JFK.
Right, and not only JFK, his brother. It was said that she was actually having trysts with both of them. So with that going on, in this conversation to this woman, she states that with JFK, she was at a secret air base and saw things that were from outer space. And if he did not stop ignoring her, that she was going to go public with this. And this is a taped recording that you can find or that they had. 3 days later, she's found dead from suicide.
Suicide.
I'm just saying, folks.
I know.
After that taped call, 3 days later, she's dead from an overdose of pills.
Yeah, no, and I we laugh about that now when we hear about people, oh, this person committed suicide. Jeffrey Epstein hung himself.
Right.
The federal judge that was looking into the Jeffrey Epstein case, heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
listen to this one. The only news reporter to go live on a national TV or local TV with the Pizzagate deal, found dead several months later.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's all kinds of things that'll, if it's just weird that when people come forward and then they're dead days or weeks or months later from suicide, it only puts questions in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it seems like anyone that gets too close to the Clintons is suicided.
I absolutely love the Clintons just to make sure that I don't get suicided.
I love you too. I love you too, Hillary. I enjoyed our dinners together years ago. Oh, I didn't mean that, Bill. I did not have sexual relations with your wife.
And what is the definition of is?
Yeah, right. Well, I had a cigar, sir, and I lost it. I don't know where I put it.
In your mouth.
But anyway, so I just thought that was always odd, and I wanted to bring that up since we are discussing aliens and things of that sort.
Well, it is odd that something like this happens. Okay, we know Bob Lazar. I watched his and we discussed this the last time we tried to record this.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Lazar's video that is now on Netflix that you can watch. It was kind of a retelling of the old story, and it was pretty much 2/3 of the video was just candid screenshots of the hipster that actually did the recording with Mickey Rourke's voiceover and stuff. So I mean, wasn't really any new information, but you know, he had some interesting things. Bob Lazar himself had some interesting points that he talked about, and one of the things that he brought up, and somebody was like, "See, we don't have that kind of technology here." I'm like, "Yes, we do. I use one of those every day. That biometric thing that he said that they used to clock in on to scan their hands to get into the military base and stuff." And he's like, "And even on that video, there is no technology." Bullshit. Got one that I use every day at the plant. We have to put our hand in that thing. Our hand gets scanned before we can get in. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah, that technology is around, but then there was a lot of shady shit that happened with Bob. The prostitution ring that he was trying to run, the wife that died, and just weird stuff. So it kind of I guess it kind of shadows his story.
Yeah, a little bit. And like you said, it was almost like a reboot of a franchise.
Yeah, it was. It absolutely was.
It was 1995, but then they brought it up and did it. And it was really well done. I mean, when the opening sequences with the FBI and being raided again, you know, I mean, it really intrigues you and piques your interest. But then it just kind of falls flat from there. And then you're like, this is nothing new. It's all stuff that we've heard multiple times.
It was basically the original documentary that was done by what's his name that used to be on Coast to Coast AM. When Bob came out to him, and he pursued the story and did all the research, and they had the television and it was live on radio. It was basically taking all of that.
Art Bell.
No, it wasn't Art Bell.
George Norrie.
No, it wasn't George Norrie. I'll have to look it up again. It was
Mars.
Was
it Mars?
No. Mars? Damn it. Who interviewed Bob Lazar originally? I can actually text it. But anyway, while I'm saying that, I'll Google that real quick. But it was basically a retelling of that whole story, but now we're bringing in an actor to voice over and throw some expletives out here and out there. And then we've got this hipster looking dude that's you get, like I said, 2/3 of the film is just him sitting there staring at a phone and texting.
Right.
And so it just, to me, it lacked substance. I think this was Bob's way of getting his name back out there again.
Some relevance. Yeah, because you know what? Immediately, where does he go? To the Joe Rogan, one of the largest podcasts going on.
Actually, I'm typing in Bob Lazar, and the very first thing that came up is Joe Rogan.
Yeah. And what I found funny on there is, what really peed me off about that is we know, okay, I'm not going to say it. We know that there's seeding going on and there are chemtrails other than condensation trails.
George Knapp.
Huh?
George Knapp.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was in May of 1989. Lazar appeared in an interview with investigative reporter George Knapp on the Los Angeles TV station KLAS under the pseudonym Dennis, and his face was hidden to discuss his purported employment at S4, a subsidiary facility he claimed exists near Nellis Air Force Base installation known as Area 51. Google, babe. I'll Google.
But no, so anyways, in that Joe Rogan interview, he's going on and on about the aliens and the tech that he was working with and things of this sort. And then Joe Rogan brings up chemtrails. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, they don't exist. We don't do any type of seeding. So how are you going to sit there and want people to believe about the aliens and then you're trying to debunk something that we know does go on? I don't know. And it might not go on to a like some people think, but we do. And I've went through.
It's called cloud seeding. We know we can
Right.
do that with
and we have been. And not only that, we seed storms as well. And there's documentation. I did. If you've never watched my show about weather manipulation, you should really sit down and give that a look, because I give you documents and dates and everything that I say. You can you can research and find that is a fact. And it goes all the way back to your state, dude, in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You know a guy by the last name of Mr. Post, the Post cereal?
Yeah.
You know, and there's Post, Texas, even a city named after him. He was one of the first guys trying to manipulate storms in Texas for purposes of getting more rain to irrigation.
Yeah.
And they were using cannons and different things of that sort, firing stuff up in the clouds, trying to make them rain. So it goes back to those days that we've been trying to tamper and make rain happen or manipulate the weather.
I mean, why wouldn't we, if we could manipulate the weather to make an area that's being drought ridden? Okay, let's see if we can seed some of the clouds that are there to produce some rainfall in that area. That would help with the environment ecologically and stuff like that. Or, hey, we got a Category 5 hurricane coming this way. If there's some way that we can manipulate this and seed it to drop it down to at least a Cat 1 so we can control some of the damage, save some lives and things like that. I mean, it would be smart technology to learn to do that.
Oh, I agree. I mean, if it's going to help us, great, let's do it. But they can also, and this has been stated, that's why we've had some of these massive tornadoes and hurricanes that are the largest we've ever seen in history. They can also increase the strength. And there's projects, you can research this and you can look it up, where they have tested increasing the strength of storms and how to do it. And they've been testing it over the Gulf for 40 plus years. So
area I live,
you know, yeah. I had one thing I had marked down I wanted to go over. Oh yeah, we were talking about battery power a little bit ago.
Yeah.
The U.S. Navy just came out with a patent in October of this year for a nuclear fusion reactor that basically could fit in the side of one of our phones, but it can get us around the world and back, several times before it has to be recharged or changed out, or however they do it.
You have to change out the material in it that actually creates the fusion reaction.
And I guess it's called the plasma compression fusion device. And where was that at? What's the guy's name? Oh yeah, it was put in by the Navy back on March of 2019, and the inventor was Dr. Salvatore Pais, Pais, and this is the same guy. He's been working for the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircrafts Division, and he's the same guy that previously lodged a patent on behalf of the Navy that dealt with a hybrid air, water, and space vehicle that would be propelled and protected by electromagnetic fields. Doesn't that kind of seem like?
You want to know what's interesting?
Yes, sir.
I just actually pulled that the plasma compression fusion device U.S. patent up.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it right here.
Okay.
I can see diagrams of it. It's a thermonuclear fusion reactors with magnetic or electric plasma confinement. So yeah, it talks about how the use for the government of the United States for governmental purpose without payment or royalties. Background: nuclear fusion involves the forcing together unification of light nuclei to form heavier nucleuses, and it's the whole patent. And you can actually download the PDF on it and read it. And it was assigned to the Department of the Navy in 2018 of March 22nd.
Okay. Yeah. So I try and not lie when I say stuff. So, and I'm glad that we're fact checking and looking it up as we go.
Yeah, because we don't want video pulled.
All right. Yeah. False info. But I just thought that was wild too, man, that this thing is propelled and protected by an electromagnetic field. That the vehicle that he put a patent on, that they want to use this plasma compression device with.
Well, I don't see an issue with creating a small nuclear powered device, because we're already have the capabilities of bringing these devices down. I mean, I worked in the nuclear field. I've been into these nuclear plants, and they're massive. Fermi Nuclear Power up in Detroit. It's a freaking 2-mile long complex. It's huge. And then you've got 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, and all these places. These are huge complexes, and the amount of energy that's produced. Yet we're able to scale those down to where they fit in a nuclear sub that has 100 people in it, and power that nuclear sub.
Well, look what
why can't we scale it down a little further? Hell, talk about scaling. The Voyager just left our solar system, has a nuclear powered. It's nuclear powered. So I mean, you think about it, the Voyager wasn't but about this big around, I guess. I don't remember exactly how big around, but it could have been more than about 5 foot in diameter.
What did they say? It's got about 7 years left on it?
Yeah, it's got about 7 years left on it. But you think about it, man. Dude, that little bitty nuclear power reactor has lasted 50 years?
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Who wouldn't want a car with a small nuclear reactor in it that they could drive for the next 50 years and not ever have to charge it or refuel it? Oh, but wait, we can't do that because then somebody would suicide you.
Yeah. Right. Dun, 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 dun.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. So moving on, folks, we've touched on that. Here's what I really wanted to talk about this before we got off today. Anywhere else is, all right, we know that Reagan and Gorbachev discussed aliens during their time in the 80s. And Reagan started the Star Wars defense system and Spa War and things of that sort. And let's fast forward on up to Donald Trump. And I'm going to throw that up here. And Donald Trump, when he had his press conference, talking about creating another branch of the military, and it will be the Space Force. And the reason that he wanted to create it, and you can Google and YouTube the actual speech that he's given about it, is because he feels that we need to defend ourselves in space, especially as we go forward with mining of resources. So, and here's me being a conspiracy guy, does this give validity to guys like Captain K, Corey Good, Mr. Mitchell, that have all come out as whistleblowers saying that there is a space force, that you do a 20 and back? and that we have bases on Mars, on Titan, on the moon, and that they actually are put there to help combat and protect the colonies that we're trying to grow or build on these specific deals? I don't know. We don't know, because we do know this. Anything that we're holding or using right now, the military had it 20 years ago.
And it was probably at one point brought to you by NASA.
Yeah, right. We talked about that when we were on the 5G. I mean, the military was using 5G back in the early 90s. You know, we say fifth generation, but they were using that type of technology. And now it's coming towards, you know, moving forward to be used every day now, you know, with the civilians. But, you know, are these guys just all quacks? They all came out at different times. They all talk about similar stories. I don't know. It makes you go, did we already have a space force and they're just finally letting it be known that Trump's in office? It's a little more validation towards disclosure? Or are these just a couple of quacks that for the last 10 years have been pushing this narrative?
Yeah. And there again, we've just got their testimony.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't actually have documentation or evidence showing that there's stuff on Titan, stuff on the moon, or stuff on Mars. Again, it's just their testimony. However, Trump's statement, and I try to stay off political stuff because, I mean, not everybody agrees politically. You and I don't agree politically on certain things, but hey, you know what?
Right.
We're friends. We can have a conversation. That's what
Sure.
it's about. However, his conversation does hold his statement about we need a creative space force to protect ourselves when we're going after resources in space, I think has some validity to it, not necessarily pointing to these other programs that are out there. It's kind of pointing to the fact that private corporations are now getting into space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And corporations can be cutthroat. Sure. Why wouldn't a corporation hire a team of mercs to protect an asteroid that they're mining, and or let's say somebody who has other nefarious ideas thinks that, hey, I can get somebody into space with our mercs and stuff, and we can mount some, or we can just change the trajectory. If we calculate it out just right, change the trajectory of this asteroid just enough to where when it comes into our area, we can change the trajectory to make it impact Earth, let's say, over the United States. So, yeah, I mean, if we're going to be going out and exploring, maybe we need to have some sort of defense system out there, because we don't know what the intentions of other human beings are. We already know it. Human beings are garbage when it comes to interacting with other human beings. We can't do it. We haven't been able to do it for 250,000 years without bloodshed. And profit
or 10,000 years or 6,000 years, depending on what your belief is.
Yeah, 450,000. But yeah, it's that would, to me, would seem like a valid reason to create a branch that is strictly for, but you know what? We already have that branch. Maybe we just need to start funding it. NASA is our space force. Pretty much everybody that goes up in these spacecraft to the ISS, which, by the way, I have seen through my telescope. It's there. Our military, they're Air Force trained military. Yet the United States government, for every dollar that goes into our government for taxes, NASA gets 0.0003% of that. Okay, great. How about we take some of this $17 billion we're about to, or $17 trillion we're about to blow on a war in a country over here, and let's take half of that and give that to NASA and say, you know what? Get us up there, get us established on the moon, get us established on Mars. Let's start getting some resources back to Earth, because resources are limited here. like I said, if we can get to an asteroid and mine some palladium or some nickel or something, we could increase our battery technology tenfold within 5 years.
Well, didn't Trump say, NASA, I want us to be back on the moon by 2020. I'll give you
No. I
resources.
think he made the comment about Mars 2035.
Okay. I thought he also said something about the moon. I'm going to need to look that up.
In all honesty, if we're going to go out and start figuring out how to colonize another planet, I think the moon should be our first stop.
We
Because
should have we
right
should already
next
have a
door.
base. We should have a base there because that's the perfect place to launch. First you leave here, boom, you land on the moon. And then from
Low
the moon,
gravitation, you less fuel expenses to get off of it. Not to mention, it's right here.
yeah.
What better place to learn how to live on another planet?
Well, unless we're flat.
Well, I got a picture I'll throw up here in just a
No, I'm
minute.
just kidding. And I want to kind of go back to, you said ISIS, the International Space Station, ISS being up, and it is, but it's actually only in lower Earth orbit.
Yeah, we don't have anything right now in high Earth, outside of Earth's orbit. Everything is in low Earth orbit. And to any of our viewers out there that may be telescope junkies, I've got a really nice telescope. Rich has seen it in the background before, and you can actually get an app that's called Stellarium, and it'll track every satellite and tell you when it's going to pass over your area. It'll even track the ISS. And I have literally zoomed in when it says it's going to track and go across the moon, and put my telescope out, and you can watch it go across the moon. It's super cool.
Let me ask you a question now. How do you feel? All right. I'm glad you brought satellites up, because somebody once told me, they're like, man, if there's as many satellites orbiting Earth as they say they are, this is what the Earth should look like. And they showed a picture to me. And basically I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And it's almost like this just clutter of space junk surrounding Earth. Okay. And I'm like, let me look this up. Are there really that many satellites supposedly in space? And there's a website you can go to, and I've got to find the name of it, but it lists every satellite, when they were launched, the corporation that they're tied to, the country, how long they're supposed to be in all this. And that list is long. I mean, it's in the thousands and thousands and thousands. I mean, I forget, and I don't want to quote it because I can't remember if it was tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But it was so many that the guy took that list and then made little pin drops of how many there was on that list, and then surrounded it around the Earth. And you almost cannot even see the ball. If you know, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when we see clips or pictures, we don't see one satellite.
Okay. How many vehicles are on the planet right now?
Oh, millions.
Millions. Yet from the ISS space station, you can't even see one.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think of a bigger scale. These satellites aren't the size of semi-trucks.
No, but some of them are the size. The average size is the size of a school bus.
No.
A lot of them, yeah. I was reading that. They said look that up. What the average size of a satellite is. I want to say that it's in a small school bus. I could be wrong.
I've seen some of the satellite technology that they're putting out there, and I mean, some of them are 3-4 foot.
Sure, right.
And so, I mean, and satellites crash back to Earth on a daily basis. People don't realize that. I mean, they crash down back to Earth almost on a daily basis and burn up in our atmosphere. So
I was gonna say, why have none never hit us? So I guess they burn up on their way down.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's you got to think more of the size. We're minuscule. We're tiny. Earth is huge. We put it doesn't matter if we put something up there the size of a Volkswagen Bug. We're still not going to be able to see it from the ground.
Because we saw Tesla.
Yeah.
That looks so fake, dude. I'm sorry. And what was funny is Elon Musk was on there saying, well, it looks fake because it's real.
Okay. Sizes vary. Okay. And it does say some can be the size of a school bus. However, some can be as little as 2 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if we're pumping up 1,000 of them at 2 pounds a piece, we're not going to be able to see that.
Right.
It
And
do-
what I always thought too is how did none of them ever hit each other up there or run into that?
They are monitored. Their trajectories are monitored, and you get them on a certain flight path, and they monitor. And we've had collisions, which is why sometimes telecommunications go down. Now we got to reroute to another satellite that's up there.
Right. Right. That's true too. And man, how is the ISS missed?
Oh man, they have got some. I've watched some of the technology behind that, dude. They are tracking everything that's up there. There's nuts, there's bolts and stuff like that, and that space station is constantly making adjustments to move, and it still gets hit. I saw a plate that they brought down. It was an aluminum plate, the siding piece off of the ISS. It's in the Smithsonian Museum. They got hit by a screw that was in low Earth orbit, traveling at like something like 50,000 miles per hour around the Earth, right? And it hit it, and dude, it looked like they shot it with like a cannon. So yeah, I mean, we're constantly monitoring that stuff, the space junk that's up there. Some of the technology that's out is tracking literally bolts, the trajectory of them. And if you yourself are out doing a spacewalk and you get one of these bolts, let's say a 3 millimeters in diameter, which is under 1/8 of an inch, comes zipping through, you won't even feel it if it hits you. Your next thing you know, you're going to be like, oh shit, I got a hole in me.
Right.
I'm dead.
Now, what is that? Does that stuff not hit the ISS either?
The ISS gets hit. It's got shielding on it, but for the most part, they move.
Because I saw something too that really made me go,
Every now and then it does get hit, but for the most part, they're tracking constantly here on Earth, and they're with the same technology, and you'll see that, and they'll move a little bit, may just barely pass them, but they do try. They stay out of the way of that crap, and that's where one of the problems I've got is we as human beings are junking the hell up out of our planet. Okay, if we take something up into space, don't just leave it there.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back, because I mean that shit can kill you.
Yeah. I couldn't believe how junky. I'm seeing all these pictures in the sea now, man. And there's miles and miles of garbage just.
That plastic island that's in in Pacific Ocean. I mean, that's why I said human beings were trash. We're destroying our own planet. Come on, guys. I mean, I would love to leave something for my children to see. The koala bear, since our last time we spoke, the koala has officially been put on the endangered species almost extinct list because of that fire.
I got one better. There are more tigers in captivity in the U.S.
than
there are in the wildlife. That's scary.
I mean, our kids growing up, our grandkids, they're going to look back at us one day and go, Grandpa, what was an elephant like?
Yeah.
And to me, that's sad.
It is. Well, it's almost like if there were aliens out there, and there truly is other life, if I were them, I'd be rolling up on Earth, and I'd be like, kids, roll up your windows and lock the doors. We're passing Earth.
We didn't discuss that this time. We did discuss it last time we tried recording. Okay. Have you noticed that majority of the sightings of alien and stuff like that started happening regularly after our discovery of splitting the atom?
Sure.
And the nuclear proliferation throughout the world. We hear of sightings. 3 Mile Island had several sightings before it went nuclear. We've got almost every time we've tested a nuclear device, there's strange sightings around it and stuff. So maybe it's like what you're saying. They're rolling up and they're like, oh shit, roll up the windows. They're about to blow this shit up again.
Yeah.
Or now they're like, they're looking at each other going, we're going to have to intervene eventually.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could think of 3 major events that really spiked any type of UFO sightings and afterwards. I mean, Hiroshima, obviously. But there was a project called Project Fishbowl, which fell under another project, was Project Dominic. Both these projects you can look up. We're firing nuclear weapons into space and exploding them. Now, with Project Fishbowl, I don't know what they were trying to do. I don't know, the name even is fishy, like they're trying to break through something. Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
They're trying to see if there really is a firmament.
Right. So, and these are actual projects they did. So if we're firing off these nukes and they're exploding in upper Earth orbit or even lower, that's got to shake up. Those waves are going to carry. That is, and also if we go interdimensional with this, is that affecting dimensions, or is that causing things to blur? Do you understand?
Yeah.
I mean,
so basically the aliens that we are seeing and that people are seeing are coming here going, yeah, okay, yeah, write this one down because we're going to write Earth a big ass citation before too long. Hey, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I would look at it this way. If I was an outsider looking in, watching human beings, wouldn't you want to keep close tabs on them?
Yes.
Especially as they're starting to make their way out into space. We always see in our sci-fi movies that the human beings, we're going out into space and we're going to explore. We're the good guys. We're exploring. But if you're on the outside looking in, it's like, oh, hell no, I don't want these sumbitches finding me.
Right.
These dudes are killing people over who's got the better God.
Mm-hmm.
They're still, these people are killing each other over resources that are abundant throughout the universe, but just because they're fighting over a little piece of land, killing each other. Now they're blowing shit up in our domain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, nah, I mean, as far as we know, what does Star Trek used to call it? Their coalition of planets or something like that, whatever it was. Maybe all these guys are sitting out there going, yeah, keep an eye on these guys. We're the ISIS of the universe.
We are. I mean, and that's sad to say that mankind, we're so self-destructive, man. It's almost like we open Pandora's box without even thinking and just walk away and leave it open and just, it's sickening, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is.
So,
folks,
guys.
Yeah, I don't want to get too crazy on you there and drag on, but is there anything else you really want to touch on, Mike? With
no, I think we covered everything that we've been trying to cover for the past 4 recordings, month and a half long.
Right. No, absolutely. And I know that we went several different directions tonight, but we had a great time, and we did throw some valid information out there, and then we did maybe put some thoughts in your head that will make you want to go out and research some things. I know I love researching, and Mike and I will both list some of the things where you can find this stuff. And I know you said you're going to add a little video, maybe, possibly.
Yeah. Well, you have a green screen on yours, and for the listeners out there who may be listening, Rich has given me permission to share this on my platform as well. It's not going to have all the bells and whistles that Rich has on his end because I don't want to take away from him. I'm just going to throw up some of these, like where you saw me sitting here Googling stuff while we were doing it. I'll throw up like a screen capture of it just to show you that, hey, this is what I found, just a real quick cursory search.
Right. So, I mean, it's out there and you can find it. And, but at the end of the day, like I always tell you guys, seek your own truths. I'm going to bring you what I research, but my word is not law, and Mike's word is not law. These are simply opinions sometimes, or just facts that we find and are sharing with you. And sometimes people get opinionated with facts, and they'll lean one way or the other. I know I try and stay neutral, So with that said, forgive me for my Trump video that is coming up in a week or two. No, I'm just kidding.
No, just kidding. You don't kiss my ass. I'm gonna post it anyways.
Yeah,
Right?
no, I do got a funny one I'm going to post, man, but it's more, I don't ever get political, but it's more of a tone of where our country is, not politics in general, but where we are as a people. And it's fun. It's enlightening and it's fun. And I've been working on it for several weeks. So I think the fans will enjoy that. But Mike, man, I had a blast with you as always, brother.
I did too.
We had a good time. And folks, if you want to catch more of Mr. Mike Simons, remember to check him out at the Anything Goes Project. And gosh, he has amazing interviews. And if you're just wanting to listen, you can check him out. He's on, a zillion different platforms for audio podcasts.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio. It's just everywhere. But we do also have a side platform. We record some of our guests on video, and we release them on YouTube. So it's not as fancy as Rich's, but it's just basically me sitting there talking with somebody, and I got a little bit of flash going on in the background. But it's a fun show. But we're about to start another show, too, for those who may be interested in art. You can see behind me, Rich has talked about it before. I'm an artist. I'm a published author. I've written 6 books. I'm also a painter, an artist, a custom woodworker. I'm gonna create a new YouTube channel called Let's Do Art. And I'm going to be walking you through a painting so you can paint along with me, walking you through a custom woodwork piece that you can do with me, because I very much believe that for somebody who may be having depression, having a post-traumatic stress, or just feeling down in the dumps, you take everything that's inside of you and throw that on a canvas, something that has now become positive. Art has the power to heal. Absolutely. And I want everybody that is ever had the inkling to, I would love to learn to paint. Hey, join me. I'm going to teach you some techniques. I'm not a professional painter. I'm not this guy that's selling $4 and $5 million paintings. I just enjoy art, and I want you to enjoy it with us too.
Man, you got some great stuff though, brother. He'll go from sci-fi to, modern to cave to, he takes it all over the place, and he's got some amazing work. And I've got some pictures. I'll throw some up here on the screen as well. And I'm going to have you send me a video of your opening, and I'll throw that up here and play it while we're talking as well. And so, folks, with that said, you know where to find me. And check out the website as well at brrsmedia.com. I've updated it. And as always, God bless. Stay safe, and have a great night.
Peace out of here.
Now, here comes the music.
We want to thank you for tuning in to the Anything Goes Project. If you like this show, subscribe and share it. That would greatly help us out. To contact the show, email us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com. We love hearing from our subscribers and our listeners. The Anything Goes Project can be found on iTunes, CastBox, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and many other Android applications. And once again, thanks for listening.